So I remember as 3 years old, I'll be crying and I'll be saying like, Papi, Papi, which is like daddy, daddy, like I want him. But he already left the home. And that affected my self-esteem, my identity, because I'm like, well, why doesn't my dad like me for who I am? Like, I don't want to wear makeup. I don't want to dress up. Like, I don't feel comfortable like that. I would say because I wasn't getting the nourishing part of like a father, of like, you're beautiful, like you have a lot of value. I would seek that in my relationships. So I didn't know that at that time. So I would just be feeling my identity in romantic relationships. I had to go back to my home state in New Jersey, and I didn't have anywhere to stay. So I basically lived with him during the pandemic. And so I felt that was like the beginning of the restoration.
Thank you so much for joining me today. That's a pleasure to have you here. Usually I record interview with men about their experience, but you're really special because today we hear another perspective, daughter's perspective on the relationship with the father. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Kirsten. I was doing for a couple of years social work. I was like a therapist. I would be seeing clients as young as 4 years old to 20s and parents. And then I changed gears and now I work for a ministry called Coming Together Ministries.
What made you to go to social work?
I would say mainly within my household, how I was raised up, there was a lot of mental illness. Like my mother, she has bipolar. So growing up, periodically, she would be going in and out of the hospitals. And then I'll have to stay at a family's home while my sister would stay in another home. So that would happen growing up. So I think I would see that and I would want to be taking care of my mom. So as a child, seeing, you know, she's having a mental crisis and she's doing things that are odd. So I think that developed in me, like I want to help people like that as well.
What 3 things you would buy if you would get a $1 million?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess like a home, a home. So right now, to be able to maybe take care of my mom, like to be in the home with me, to help others. I know like for me, I like watching a lot of documentaries. So if it could be like helping people who are being trafficked in that population, like teens, youth. So maybe helping in that capacity. And then another one would be maybe to continue exploring, going around the world. I like to do that too. Yes.
Have you been traveling much?
Yes, with like the ministry that I'm in, we go around within the States, and we also have gone to Bulgaria. So it keeps us like learning new people,
exploring
and helping
places
them as well.
and people.
Yes.
As a social worker, I'm guessing that you like to explore people and
Absolutely.
For the sake of maybe helping them in
Yes.
many ways.
Exactly.
So you like to help people. Do you like to receive help yourself?
There was a time where I didn't want to, but then I think once I started to see, like, I was starting to feel very depressed or suicidal and anxiety, then that's where, like, okay, I'm gonna go see a therapist. And so when I was in the university, I would see a therapist.
You mentioned about the ministry that right now you are part of. Would you like to tell us what kind of ministry is that, and maybe if people would be willing to learn more about it, how they can find out about this ministry?
Sure. So it's called Coming Together Ministries, and we are developing more. So there's the purpose of the ministry is to help individuals who are struggling with any type of sexuality issues. So it could be masturbation, identity, or adultery. So any type that fits those categories. We want to provide an alternative of how to help them in their journey with their habits, and also having a way to uplift each other up through like prayer, support groups. So
we will post a link down below for those who would like to learn more about the ministry, who like to help people. But it was sometimes a challenge to receive help. Again, it's coming from your childhood, am I right? That
yes.
you experience yourself, and now you learn yourself how sometimes it's challenging. And because you went through this yourself, you try to help others. You know, there is such a saying, fathers play a significant role in forming identity of a child. Do you agree with this statement or no?
I would say I agree. At 3 years old, my dad had left my mom. It was basically because he had left. Well, they both had different beliefs, so that would sometimes crash. And so then my dad, he also left to be with another woman. So I remember as 3 years old, I'll be crying and I'll be saying like, Papi, Papi, which is like daddy, daddy, like I want him. But he already left the home, and my mom will have to console me. Of course, she wouldn't say like, you know, more, because at 3 years old, you can only understand so much. But then as I got older, my dad, he would call when I would get home from school, and I went to a private Christian school, and he'll be, you know, just the basics, like, did you put your uniform away? Did you do your homework? So in that way, you know, he was around, but it wasn't deeper. I also remember over the weekend, because they shared custody, I would go with him and my sister to his home, and it would basically be either you know, watching TV, or he would take us to the park, and he enjoyed playing soccer. And I guess in that way I connected with him, because I was more like the sporty girl and my sister was more the girly girl. So I remember we would go to the park, and that would be fun. I guess that was like the most connection we were getting. But then, you know, during middle teen years, you know, the hormones, and that's where, you know, with your identity, like, who am I? So because I already had identified myself as like sporty, but my dad, he valued like beauty and how one presents themselves outwardly. So my sister, because she was more the girly girl, he would affirm her. He would say, oh, look, you look great, beautiful. And then he'll tell me, like, why don't you be like your sister? So he'll be comparing. And that affected my self-esteem, my identity, because I'm like, well, why doesn't my dad like me for who I am? Like, I don't want to wear makeup. I don't want to dress up. Like, I don't feel comfortable like that.
How did you feel when he compared you with your sister? And it sounds like he was not happy with the way you were dressed. How did you feel at this moment? Do you remember?
I would feel like frustrated, upset, and I guess like, why? I guess I wasn't seeing what he wanted me to look like, and then just seeing that he wasn't accepting for how I would dress.
You mentioned about soccer. To some, it might be interesting. You said that he went to play soccer. Did he go to play soccer with you, or he played by himself and you was just watching how he's playing?
Yeah, so we would all play together.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would be like him, my sister, myself, and when he had left my mom and us, I found out through him, I'm going back a little bit to go back to that, was that for those, like, I don't know, Chuck E. Cheese, you know, is like a play area for kids. And so my dad was like, I'm going to take you to Chuck E. Cheese. And so as a kid, I think I was maybe 5 years old, I was excited, like, yes, let's go. So then we're driving, and then he brings me to this home. And next thing I know, I'm in the home, and there's this woman there. And then he tells me, like, look, let's go see what's in the next room. And I see like a cradle, like a baby cradle. And then I see like a baby there. And then my dad is like, look, that's your brother. And I was like, what? Like, I was so confused.
You were expecting to go to Chuck E. Cheese, but you came to unknown place and now you found out that you have a brother.
Correct. And so that's where, because in my mind as a child, I'm like, we're going to go to Chuck E. Cheese. Growing up, then I would call the woman he was with, his wife, like Chucky. I would call her Chucky. But she was a good, I guess, stepmother. Like, she really would care about my sister and I and my brother. So now going back to the playing soccer, yes, it would be, her, my brother, my sister and I. Not just be like a little game, just who can steal the ball from each other and make it in the goal. So that was like a good memory, I remember.
That's interesting because some parents do play with their kids, specifically sports, and some don't. So you're saying a good memory, this is something that you recall and make you feel good about it, am I right?
Yes, because I was finally connecting with something I enjoyed. Like, I enjoyed soccer, volleyball, basketball, and so to be able to play with my dad, like, that would be like a highlight. Or during the summertime, I love going to the beach, so he would have a van full of us, the kids, and his wife at that time, and would just go to the beach. So that's how we were also connecting too.
So he did spend some time with you. But as you mentioned earlier, it was not like on a deeper level.
Correct.
That you would like to. What you would mean by saying deeper level? What was missing or lacking?
I would say, like, being able to first, like, affirm me for what I was like back then. So let's say to that example where instead of saying, oh, you should be like your sister and compare me to my sister, like pointing out something within me, whether it's a quality or just something I would do, like to affirm me, like, good job, Kirsten, like, see, you could do it. And so I think to that point you mentioned about the identity, I think that would have been pivotal in shaping of, like, oh, so I'm good at this, or if it's a subject in school, or if something I am struggling with. Like, I remember also it was like a test, I got like a B, and he was like, okay, well, next time get an A. And I'm just like, but a B is good. So he wanted me to excel always in A. So I guess that would also another way could be like, okay, you did a B, were you struggling in something? Like, just learning more about me and my learning, or who I was as a person, and then just affirming me as his daughter.
Another interesting moment, fathers who will be watching this interview, and some would think, should I just accept B or C of my child and encourage him, or keep excelling and keep encouraging my child to do better, but maybe different way? That's what you're trying to say, yes? Am I right?
Yeah.
How you would add to this, now looking back, how you would want your father to approach it, to approach the situation. Let's say you got C in one of the classes and your father would come over, and what would be your expectation? How you would like your father to deal with this situation?
I guess maybe try to see where I'm at learning. Like, let's say, oh, you got at C, let's say in math, and let's try to work a problem out together, and try to see, like, if I'm struggling, he would be able to notice where I'm at. Maybe, not everyone is good in math. Yeah, maybe try this next time, or maybe just if it's the textbook or just whatever lesson that a child is going through, try to see if they're able to understand and comprehend that material. So I guess just trying to see where I'm at, but also giving that encouragement, because I think it's also healthy, to encourage, and like a coach, like, you could do it, instead of saying, no, this is unacceptable, like, because then I guess it's like invalidating the potential of a child. So, and I know there's also, let's say, there could be children who have ADHD or dyslexia. So maybe sometimes a father, if they don't know that they have a learning disability, maybe trying to get informed and how different ways they can support the child in their learning.
So, but for you personally, that's what you was missing. You brought this example, and we took it a little bit, look at different angles at this situation. But for you, it was disappointing when he said it, when he didn't encourage you, but he was not happy that you got B instead of A.
Yes.
I think it's a common situation. I think it's good when we talk about it. So hopefully other fathers who are listening through this interview, they will realize, oh, maybe I should do a little bit better. At the same time, I understand that not every father can be a good teacher. You know, sometimes it might be frustrating. I don't know how to explain. I'm not good at math myself, but I want my child to succeed and do better. However, the goal is relationship between father and child. And this is one of the most important, I think, element is relationship. How do you think this his approach that he wants you to be successful influence your life? Like you mentioned that you went to social work. Have you been successful in academic because of that?
Yeah, so exactly. Growing up into like middle school, high school, I did excel academically. So I would be in honor societies, honor rolls. Graduating, I had a lot of like medallions. And in that, my dad would finally give me the confirmation and praise, and he felt proud, you know. Now I remember when I graduated high school and in 8th grade, he'll post, you know, my graduation pictures.
How did you feel at this moment?
I felt good. I felt great. And I'm like, yes, like although, okay, maybe the beauty in that area, but he's seeing me that
he's satisfied.
Yes.
But was it you was happy because he's satisfied, but the price of it, that lack of relationship, is it really worth it? What do you think?
I'll say in that era, like academically, yes, but emotionally, as like a female, like I guess I was like a daddy's girl compared to my sister. And I remember there's one moment where I guess I was connecting with him emotionally was when I was maybe about 10 years old, and I was sick. I didn't go to school. I had a fever, and during his lunch break, he came to visit, and I was just, because I like to cuddle, so I would be like this, leaning on him, and he was just sitting, not really speaking much, but then he's like, okay, I gotta go. And then I was like, no, don't go. Like, I don't feel well. And that really got to his heart. I don't know how. But then he's like, okay, I'll stay like 10 more minutes. And the fact that he stayed 10 more minutes was huge for me.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Such a small thing. It's almost like nothing.
Yeah.
But now you are a grown person, recall this memory with such a warm feeling, saying how important it was for you back then and so far till now. Such a small things. What is the earliest memory that you have with your father?
Like he'll pick us up and either we would go to see like his side of the family. So it'd be to see my grandma, to see my grandpa. He would also take us to his church too. Afterwards, we'll go out to eat, like to have food. So I'll say in that, like he'll take us to see family members. And I think in that, like as an adult now, like I value like family and family time.
Now, looking back with your father influence, how you would describe him? What kind of person he is at the time when you was growing up?
Oh, I want to say as a child, I was a little bit afraid of him. But I also saw that he was like hardworking and he was good in negotiating. So I guess part of that like business side of him as well. So he was very determined. A little bit of, I guess, in the Spanish culture, it's like machismo. And like he would still try to be there as a father as he could for his children.
And you mentioned that you tried to find satisfaction from your father. Do you think it affected anyhow later in your life when you was looking for a boyfriend?
Yes. So I would say when I was like 19 years old, it would happen unconsciously. So I didn't know when I was with a boyfriend. So like my first boyfriend, he was about 7 years older than I. So if I was 19, he was like 27 around there. And now as I look back, I'm like, oh, I can see why I was with someone much older than me.
Attracted to older.
Yeah, because the little interactions that I got as a child, when I was seeing my boyfriend at that time, he'll be showing new things, he'll be teaching me things, he'll be taking me to new places I never would have gone. So in that, it's like he had like a father role, because he was doing things that a father would be doing. I would say because I wasn't getting the nourishing part of like a father, of like you're beautiful, like you have a lot of value, I would seek that in my relationships. And so where it led me to like just sleeping around because I wanted that attachment with a man. I wanted to feel loved, I wanted to feel valued, and so I would get that in my relationships. And so then I had another boyfriend after that relationship ended, because we weren't just getting along, and I didn't like to be sleeping around, like although it would be pleasurable, but then I was compromising myself and my values. And so then I just grabbed that bag of relationship issues and problems and my insecurities. Then I brought that to another relationship. And with this person, we were connecting with our beliefs, but yet we were doing the same behaviors because I didn't know myself. And going back to like the identity, I didn't see my value. I would always compare myself with other females, like they have a better figure than me, I'm sure. And I also didn't know what I had to offer. So it's like, oh, I have good listening skills. So I didn't know that at that time. So I would just be feeling my identity in romantic relationships.
That's interesting. Similar like what you mentioned earlier, when your father was uplifting your sister, so you continue to compare yourself even in relationship with other men. Having this in mind, do you think your father influence actually impacted the way how you build the relationship with your boyfriend? What you would recommend or suggest to fathers who have daughters?
I would say, I guess like before, once they get into that age where they can see a boyfriend, like as a child, like affirming them for their qualities. Like, oh, you're good at reading, you're good at writing and singing. So as they grow up, they'll start noticing their qualities, their individuality. And so when it gets, and also the part where emotionally too, like, you're beautiful, and there will be people that don't like you, that do like you, but you're still beautiful and valuable as you are. And so then when they finally get to that stage of like dating, I think it would be good to just get to know the partner, the boyfriend, and seeing how they are, so that it builds that trust between the father and the daughter. Yeah, so build that trust, get to know the boyfriend. Yeah.
Have you ever talked with your father about what kind of boyfriend you should look for? Or maybe he was talking to you about, hey, when you grow up, or you already grown up, you will be looking for a boyfriend. Here's such a criteria or such a characteristics that I think as your father would be good for your boyfriend to have?
I think he would basically say, well, to, be careful. Like, he wouldn't go deep either. But he would say, be careful if you get pregnant, like, make sure, like, he's going to sustain or be there. If they ever hit you, like, no, don't be with that man if they're going to hit you. When I had those two boyfriends in my life, I would introduce them to my dad. And they had asked my dad, because I told him, like, okay, we're going to be together, even if we're dating. I know it's usually when a person is getting engaged, they should speak to the father, but I just felt like even in the courting or dating, like, for it could be more established. I don't know, I just felt that maybe it's like an old school.
It's more serious, yes.
Yeah, so I had both of them ask so that they could date me as a girlfriend.
And what was your father respond when he found out that your boyfriend is like 7 years older than you?
I guess he was a little bit like, but because I brought him to like family gatherings, he got to see who he was, he got to speak to him. So I think one way they connected, they bonded, was because like I'm half Peruvian, and my first ex, he was half Peruvian as well. So they were able to connect in that way too. So then when I went to the second boyfriend, it's kind of my dad, he didn't like who I was with, and he wanted me to go back with my ex. The previous one. Yeah.
Did he tell you right away saying, hey, I don't like him, I want you better to be in relationship with the previous one?
Not directly, but he would say like, oh, I spoke to your, ex the other day, and he kind of misses you. So it's like kind of like telling me to go back, but I was, no, I wasn't going to do that.
Not just about choosing the boyfriend, but do you think it would be better if your father would be more direct? I think as a father, the previous guy was much better because this and this and that.
Absolutely, yes.
You would appreciate that more.
Yeah, that he would be more direct and just, instead of giving me hints or other ways of expressing, yes, that would be good.
Values and lessons. What kind of values and lessons your father taught you or passed to you, if any? When
I would be with him as a child, I would see like he's like a good businessman in the sense of like negotiating. So it's like if let's say he needed to change his tires and he wanted like a better deal, he'll try different ways to do that. So I would see that growing up. So I think now I like to see if I'm gonna go get new tires or it's just anything that I have to go buy, try to see, okay, which one is better, this or this? So seeing the value in what I buy, being cautious of, not spending. Like it's good to save and just, but also because growing up, I guess it was also, we were in governmental housing and my mom, she didn't work. So I also saw that aspect where we had to just go with, let's say, shoes that were kind of like run down. But then with my dad, he'll be like, no, get yourself some good shoes. Like, it's okay in that area to spend. Yeah.
You mentioned about divorce between your mother and father. And you mentioned that it was heartbreaking for you. Could you tell us a little bit more? You mentioned that you was 3 years old. At 3 years old, what it was for you?
I felt, I guess, like the absence of him not being in the home as much. And so then it started to just be, he'll just be calling. So just thinking like, why my parents not together? So when I got maybe to the age where I started to connect and, seeing now he's with another person, I have a brother, then I felt a moment as a child like, why can't my parents just be back together? And I remember just also like praying, please, please. I even had like a little coloring journal that I'll have, and I'll be like, please, Lord, bring my mom and dad back together. But I didn't know, like, there were just like deeper things of why they were separated.
What do you think is better for children. You just mentioned that there were some other things why your parents broke up, divorced. But for you as a daughter, it was like, what's going on in this world? I want them back. You mentioned that you was praying, God, put them together. What is your personal perspective?
I guess first, kind of in the sense where, as a child, I've heard a lot of children say like it's their fault that their parents separated. So I guess to parents, to fathers, like really assure them that it's not their fault. And then,
did your father do that? Did he talk to you saying that, Kirsten, this is not your fault, or that was not the case?
No. And yeah, so I think now with the parents, try to work it out. Let's say if it's with a professional, if it's counseling or just someone to really try. But if it's something that, let's say if it's infidelity, or I know that can get very rough to go through. As an adult, keep like the issues between the parents, between them, and not really say a lot to the children, but maybe according age appropriate, because then when I was getting older and I just saw, okay, my dad has his family, my mom is single, I would also, then for me, I would be afraid of being cheated on, or me in those relationships I had, my relationship was just going to be over because my boyfriend cheated on me. So I think that way, because of what happened with my parents, I would think that might happen to me.
Your mental extra attention was focused on cheating or honesty, instead of just focusing on building good relationship, you was extra engaged in your personal thoughts about, is he faithful to me or not? And
to the extent where with the first boyfriend I had, I'll say like, okay, give me your phone, and I would check if there was anything I would find that he's cheating on me, talking to another female. That really was over my mind because of, as a child, and seeing how my parents, split. And then with my dad and his partner at that time, then she cheated on my dad. So then I saw my dad, he was going through it. He really got depressed. He lost weight. He was very skinny. I'll see him sad. They didn't share that information with me. It's just they split. I think they might have said, because of like money. I'm like, okay. But then once I got as an adult, that's where my dad did confess and share with me that it was because of infidelity.
You mentioned about the ministry that you are part of right now, and it's about intimate relationship. What do you think it would be appropriate for a father or a mother to talk to their daughter about intimate relationship?
As a child, kind of just starting off with like, okay, make sure like these are your private areas, like no one should touch them, and then just their values, if it's, if they want to save sexual intimacy for marriage, or it's just like be careful if you are going to engage, if there's ways to go around that, as they get older. So just depending their maturity level too, but it's also considering, now with social media and the websites out there, like everything is there. So maybe back 10, 12 years ago, like it wasn't so exposed, but now because how society and our culture is today, I think is a little bit more kind of like being mindful of, like be careful of what you're doing. If you're gonna go out, like have the phone ready, or just these little things. And if they are mature and they want to be vulnerable, I know with my mom, she had told me growing up when she was a teenager, like she was raped. So because I'm a female, and she felt like, okay, you need to protect yourself.
So your mom talked to you about it, saying that,
Yes.
hey, I had such a situation I want you to be aware of.
So it could be maybe a father speaking to their son more about that, a mother speaking to their daughter.
So you think it would be
about
more
that.
appropriate if mom would talk to a daughter while father would talk to a son about sex and intimate relationship? What do you think? Was it good when your mom talked to you about it and told you about her experience?
I would say yes, and maybe a little bit, maybe she overshared when I was that age, because then, let's say, I'll be very fearful of men going out. I couldn't, because I would think, oh, they're going to do something to me. Then that also helped me in a way to see myself, I have to protect.
What was one of the biggest challenge for you growing up with your father?
I remember, because my mom was more like the passive parent, if my sister and I would get into fights or arguments and my mom just had it, she would call my dad and say, look, your daughters are arguing, they're fighting, do something about it. My dad, he'll talk to us and say, okay, do push-ups, that type of punishment. But then I guess there was a point where, I don't know if he had a bad day, or maybe what my sister and I did was horrible. I don't remember the details, but I do remember during his break, he did come to our home and he had us stand next to each other, and he was just yelling at us and saying you need to listen to your mom and you can't be fighting. And then he hits us. And when he hit us, I just felt like a grudge. I felt so mad, because in my mind I was thinking, you don't even live with us. The time when you do come here is corporate punishment, or to hit us. So I held a grudge for a while because that happened.
Do you think your father influenced on how you making major decisions on your life?
Partially. So, one example is because he knew about cars and mechanics, and so he helped me to get my first car. And it was one of his cars, and I just paid maybe $500 or so. So it was a used car, but he did help me a lot to get my first car, and then now my second car that I have now. So
So he's playing a big role in decision what vehicle do you drive.
Correct, yes.
Plus, probably you mentioned earlier about negotiation skills and learning how to find a good deal, good product for good price. That's something that you learned from your father.
Yeah, so when I'm out now with my husband and we had to, let's say, get an item or so, I'm let's check another store, because I'm thinking maybe there's a better deal somewhere else. So in that way, that still resonates in my mind.
Do you still have something, bitterness, unforgiveness, some expectations that were not met that you hold against your father?
But maybe when I was 20, around there, I did for all those years. But then when I went to go study for my master's in a Christian university, the pandemic hit. I had to go back to my home state in New Jersey, and I didn't have anywhere to stay. So I basically lived with him during the pandemic. And so I felt that was the beginning of the restoration of a daughter and father. So I got to see more of him, and that's something that I also wanted as a child. So I remember I still had in my writing book, when I had a prayer that I wanted my parents to be together, I also had another prayer where it's Lord, I want to live with my dad one day. And
how old you was when you wrote it down?
Do you know? We're 8 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then during the pandemic, I ended up moving in with him. And then it just hit me like, oh wow, that prayer came true. And yeah, that's where I started to connect with him. Because then during those relationships, well, the second relationship, it was going down, it was bad. And then I just want to connect with my dad. So then I will initiate. I'm like, Dad, like, what would you do in these relationships? Or like, I confided in him and I opened up to him. And I think that's where then he started to pour into me and be like, yeah, like I didn't like him. And so we were able to connect in that way during the pandemic. Yeah.
I don't know, it might be a hard question, but if you could recall and think about why you had such a desire to get to know your father better.
I believe it's because he just wasn't around. And, you know, in school, you would see parents like the father and mother, or just if you're in a park and you see both parents, like as a child, you think, oh, that would be nice, you know, to have two parents together instead of two different homes. And so I think that's where I'm just like, I just want to be with my dad. I want more of him because just a little time I had, it's like, that's it. It's over. And then I'll just have to go, you know, back with my mom. So I felt like, you know, when you're thirsty, like, and you just have a small cup of water and you drink it, and then it's like, but I want more. But
so you
no
had
more.
a good time with your father. You spent weekends with him, am I right?
Yeah.
And you had a good time with him, that it was not enough. But at the same time, you like to spend time with your mom, although we all have different challenges, but your mom had her own challenge. But you want both parents to be together, and because they were not, you enjoy time with both of them and you wanted to know both of them. I think this is very actually powerful, to know your father. I think it is important for fathers to know their children. It is a two-way street. So you mentioned about this time together when you moved in and lived with him for a while, and it was, you said, some kind of like a restoration. Did you have a specific moment or a specific situation, or it was just because you lived together, you got to know him?
So I'll say, yeah, there was a lot of, conversations that we would be having. But I think one pivotal moment was when my grandmother, so his mother, was also living in the home. And she was very ill. She had dementia, and she was already declining fast. And because I was in the home, whenever the homemaker would leave, he would say like, hey, can you watch your grandmother? So I'll be taking care of her. And then this one day, I was about to get ready to go to work, but my grandmother now was like less responsive. So I decided to not go to work. I'm just staying here with her, because then we had a nurse come to the home and basically said like she could leave, she could pass away anytime. We don't know when. So I decided to stay, and we had other family members come too. Long story short, I witnessed her last breath. It was like a shock to everyone, because we were thinking, oh, maybe she has a couple more days. But shortly after, she passed away, and everybody was in the living room, and I was with her and my aunt, which was my grandma's sister. We were there, and I ran to the living room to say like, you know, she's gone. And everyone comes, and everyone just starts crying. And I remember, you know, they had to take her away, and my dad just started crying heavily. I'm thinking like, can I cry, or do I have to be strong for him? And as he's just crying, he's saying like, you know, love your mother. You know, I left her, and I understand her illness. You never know when they're going to be gone. So, you know, just love your mother. And that to me spoke so much, because I'm like, wow, growing up, it's like he confessed, like, I left your mom, but yet he still had a heart for caring because he was caring for his mother, and he sees in the future that I'll be taking on his role of having to take care of my mother. So I'll say that was a big moment when I was living with him that really just covered us and united us even more.
Love to mother that united you. Although he mentioned that his relationship with your mom was his own relationship and they broke up, but he as a father encouraged you to love your mother. And that's what actually opened your heart even more toward him. Not to have a jealousy or try to pull child to mom or to dad. It was his price to lose his mother to, like you said, to say this statement and to have this confession saying, love your mother. Thank you for sharing this personal experience.
Thank you.
Looking back, how would you summarize the overall impact your father had on your life?
He did the best he could in showing me, he'll be present in big events. His love language, I guess, was more like gifts. So he would always make sure, for Christmas, we had like good gifts and be respectful. A high value in having family time, spending time with family. So I do see now, as I'm married, like I do have those similar values, and I still want those similar values.
Thank you very much for sharing your personal journey with your father. If you have anything in your mind that you would like to share, or advice, suggestion, feedback from your personal experience to those fathers who will be watching this interview.
It's never too late if you don't have a strong relationship with your child. Just get to know them. Their interest. What do they like to do? If it's if they like to go, for example, do golf or something, and maybe you might not like golf or you're not good at golf, just try. So it's kind of like getting to know them, and I guess not to criticize as much, be more listening. Like sometimes if a child is upset and they're like, I don't like you, you're so annoying, like there's hurt in that. So in listening, you could tell, okay, instead of being responsive, like, what do you mean annoying? Just try to see where they're coming from, and having a lot of patience and having hope and continuing to nurture your child, even if they're an adult, a teenager. So keeping the communication.
Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being with me today. And
thank you.
I wish you to continue to grow in your relationship with your father. All the best in your ministry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.